Welcome to part two of the founding of the Roman Republic lecture. We left off talking about censors. We'll pick up with the assemblies. There were a lot of different types of assemblies. The assemblies were one of the way that the plebeians or the everyday people of Rome had power and kept themselves from or kept their rights from being abused by the patricians. Some assemblies could vote to make war or peace. Some would serve as courts or vote on laws, an elected official. There were a whole lot of different types of assemblies. If an assembly felt that any action the Senate took was not in the public interest, they were able to veto actions of the Senate. So it was another examples of checks and balances in ancient Rome, kind of a way that everyday people would check the power of the wealthy in Rome. Conflict of orders is a term you'll hear a lot to talk about this kind of clash between the two classes of people in Rome that you've been hearing me refer to, the patricians and the plebeians. Patricians were powerful landowners who controlled the government. Plebeians were mainly farmers and workers, but they did make up an overwhelming majority of the population. They could vote through these assemblies that we've been talking about, but they could not hold most public offices. They couldn't be senators. They couldn't be censors. They couldn't be a lot of those magistrates that we were looking at earlier. 12 tables are very important. These are very similar to the Code of Hammurabi we talked about early on in the course, that early law code that was written down and put on display for everyone to see. Over time, the plebeians, they start out really not having a whole lot of power. Over time, they do increase the power that they have through demands and strikes, through riots. A lot of the time, if they were unhappy about how things were going in Rome, they would simply riot. And then the people in power, the Senate, would have the option of just letting the riots continue or doing something about it, giving the plebeians what they wanted, making the necessary change in order to have peace. They eventually win the right to join the army. They do win the right eventually to hold public office and to form their own assembly. Their greatest victory comes in 450 BC when they're able to force a group of these patricians to write down the laws of the Roman Republic. The laws are engraved on tablets called the 12 Tables and were placed in the Forum, in this main public square for everyone to see. That they were written down and put on display in a public place is very important. Without the laws being written down, a lot of times patricians would simply interpret the laws to fit their interests, whatever that might be. It was really hard for a plebeian to have a fair day in court when the patricians could kind of change the laws just as they went because the laws weren't written down, so no one really knew what they were except for the patricians, the wealthy people. So the 12 tables, hugely important, and we will talk more about those in class.